self-esteem is an obsession of mine. Not delusion, right? Not delusion, because that's what a lot of modern parenting does. You can do anything, Sally. No, you can't. Sally, you are not athletic enough to be in the WNBA. It wasn't that. It was this weird balance that my mom created between deep confidence, but accountability and truth. I remember trying to make an excuse for striking out in a baseball game and trying to use the sun in my eyes as an excuse, and my mom not letting me do it very subtly. Talk about childhood forming you. Like, this is why I implore everyone to communicate their truth to their children, to the world, through podcasts, through content. Like, it's amazing to me sentences change people's lives, right? She didn't let me do it. And I became very accountable because of those levels of parenting and realities. And that accountability led to so much happiness. But for me, when the school system was saying you're shit, I didn't believe them. And so I watch a lot of people being driven by hurt, and I can sense that I'm driven by love. I just sense it. Like, for me, it's just like deep self-awareness that understands how fortunate I've been. Like, so many things went my way. The mom of the century, being able to leave the Soviet Union in this little window in the 72 years that the Soviet Union dictated people's life. And to remind everybody, this is something most Americans and Westerners don't understand. The Soviet Union was like North Korea. It wasn't like Iran. Iranians right now are able to leave Iran and go to Turkey, wherever their passport is taken. They can't go everywhere, but Turkey takes their passport, Dubai takes their passport. The Soviet Union that my family grew up in was North Korea. You were not allowed to leave. But this little event in 1970 of 8 Russians trying to hijack a plane to go to Sweden to escape created a global story that led to pressure on Russia, where Spain and Israel and America teamed up and had this little moment where Russia had spent too much money on their weapons of war and were starting to run out of resources, and conformed to their anti-Semitism and decided to take money from the US and Israel in exchange for a couple of 100,000 people. And I'm one of those people. And I, born with insane levels of entrepreneurship and gift of gab and offense, get to go from the worst place on earth at the time, and for someone like me in 1978, to the best place on earth. Fuck. And then getting all love, but not delusion. And so by 10, being in the grit of like studio apartment with tons of family members in Queens, like all shit, but being 10 years old and having little, but being happy as fuck and being loved insane. And now a 10-year-old me realizes that money has no impact on happiness. I was built to win. I was built to win. And so I agree with you. I see it in so many of my friends. I always say the 2 ways to build something insane is deep, deep insecurity turned into fuel, or deep, deep, deep levels of confidence turned into fuel. Don't let it be delusional. The whole you can be anything, you can do anything you want. You can be anything you want. You just might not be the best at it or great at it. You can be a musician. It doesn't mean that you're going to be a financially successful enough musician to pay for your household. Or if you want to be, you can. You're just going to have to live humbly and live your passion, which I think is going to be the conversation in 100 years. I believe the evolution of you and I, and a lot of people listening, is a lot more people making $61,000 a year doing exactly what has them on fire and living, this is a big part, and living within the means of that 61,000. But that's a different conversation for a different day. So number 1, watch out for delusion. Number 2, you can't be the only source of positive reinforcement. Had I never gone outside and my mother did everything she did, I don't think I am who I am. The other part that made me was ringing doorbells and having 81 people say, no, kid, I don't want you to wash my car. And having 6 of them say, yes, kid, I do want you to wash my car for $5. I think what also made me was standing on a lemonade stand for months in my life, 2 days here, 3 days here, 5 days here, months of my life from 6 to 13, and watching 99.9% of the cars drive by my stand and not react to my great steins and not stop and buy my lemonade. I think what made me was 100 out of 105 people said no to shoveling snow. What made me was I had a baseball card table and I watched 100 people walk by and not want to buy anything from me, even though I had good stickers and good cards. And one, the market made me. All those no's became enjoyable. I knew at 17 that I was a fucking guy. And I decided consciously that I loved my parents so much that I was gonna dedicate a decade of my youth, prime fucking years. 20 to 30 is fucking, you got time, you got energy, I gave 10 of my greatest years. They're not my wisdom years, but they're my fucking years. And I gave them to my parents. Never made over 120,000 a year, built a business from 3 to 65 million, left with nothing. Started VaynerMedia in Mike Lazaro's conference room at Buddy Media at 34 years old because I had no fucking money. I'm proud of that. So when you can imagine when somebody writes a hit piece and says, you can't listen to this guy, he inherited his dad's liquor store, that hurts.
When you say hurts, what are the symptoms of that hurt for you?
Oh, you're gonna love this, because this is why it's not sustainable. I'm neutral at all times. Gary, you're the GOAT. Thank you. Gary, you're shit. I understand. Why does it hurt? I know that there is millions of 15 to 25-year-olds, 30 to 60-year-olds, 61 to 90-year-olds right now who've decided not to consume my message because one person who's hurting decided to build themselves up by targeting me because of the platform I'm on, and that disappoints me more than anything. As someone who is deeply, deeply, deeply driven by leaving the impact at the highest levels that he is capable of out of the guilt and gratitude of winning the DNA and environment game, the elimination of opportunity to help make the world more about love in lieu of someone reinforcing their beliefs of living the world of dark and hate is crushing for me philosophically. But the reason it's not sustained, Steve, is my number one fan on earth, outside of my family, whoever that is, Sally Pants McGee, and my number one person that hates me the most, thinks that the whole thing is the worst, can't wait till I die. I equally feel the same about it. 0. 30 to 40 is the refinement of 20 to 30. Especially if you really go at it, you're like, okay. I remember like 30 is when shit started popping for me. February 21st, 2006 is my first episode of Wine Library TV. Mm-hmm. So I'm 30. I just turned 30. And that is clear. I mean, the fact that within January, within 3 months of my 30th birthday, the very clear public data, very clear indication of the shift in my career happened 3 months. So that was interesting. And I think those are when I think of 30 to 40, I refined a lot of things that felt natural 20 to 30. I refined my craft. I started to get to know myself better. When I think about 40 to 47, I'm like, that's an evolution of 30 to 40. I'm still refining, I'm still doing, but I'm starting to get into a thought of like, okay, I like have real grasp on things. I can do some real damage. Like I'm scared in the most positive way of what I'm gonna accomplish selfish and selflessly from 50 to 60, scared. I think it's going to be banana shit. I think everything that is me right now is minor leagues compared to what I'm gonna do 50 to 60, because I now have the context of 40 to 50, which is a more polished version of the refinement of 30, 40. And so for me, 50 to 60 feels like insanity. And then when I look at my 60 to 70-year-old business friends, I'm like, fuck, I get an entire another decade after that decade of doing it at 100. And then I start debating what happens at 70, right? Then I'm like, 70 to 80 is still a very clear decade for a certain very small group to continue to go ham and go fucking insane. I'm curious where I'll be. I know to 70, I'll be exactly the same way I am right now. It's inconceivable I'm not. Those 23 years are pretty clear to me. They're gonna look like the last 23 years. 70 to 80 becomes an interesting debate. Will I take any foot off the pedal? Will I go to a different place? I often fantasize of like going into like a cave in Peru and whoever wants to find me can come and we get 30 minutes and I just do that for the next 30 years of my life. I don't know. Obviously there's that very silly but very emotional goal of buying the jets for me. That's more fun to chase than like I almost think the first time I might feel actual unhappiness or weirdness or some sort of version of like, might be if I buy the jets. Like I think about that a lot. I'm like, if this happens, was this such a romantic journey? This is not 30 and 40 and 20-year-old Gary thinking it's cool to say this. This was 12-year-old Gary telling Robbie Turnick and Eric Godfrey, I'm gonna buy this fucking team. This has been like a thing, like actually, like forever. First of all, as a whole separate and intriguing conversation, everything is a privilege and everything is a vulnerability. And this is like an incredibly important subject to talk about. I have no interest in thinking that I'm telling anyone what to do or I do not think that I'm giving advice. I really don't. And I don't touch on this enough, and I have touched on it at times, and this is a great format to touch about it. I have no belief that I'm right. I have no belief that I'm giving advice. I have no belief that anyone listening to this should do what I'm saying. I am putting info into the system, and I'm hoping that people can extract something of value for them based on their own self-awareness of themselves. As long as you come from a place of humility and understand that ego kills people. Yes, we have some luxury of mindset and communication, but for me, I don't think people should listen to me. I think people should listen to everything and try to find positivity and usability out of everything. And they should dismiss what is clearly negative and selfish, and they should triple down on everything that is selfless and positive. And that is the answer to your question that started here. What should people do? They should be very, very focused on trying to do the following. Lean in dramatically more to things that are positive. Your grandfather, podcasts, Upworthy.com, lean into positivity. Then they should be on the awareness, eyes wide open, on is this delusional and lacks practicality? Like, if I just dream it, it will happen. No. Lean in, cut out. Literally, when this podcast is over, step back, audit your entire life from the people you spend time with, your family, your friends. Look at every person you follow. Are they triggering your insecurities for their own self-interest? Or are they trying to put love into it so that you go on and do your thing? Watch, look for it. But whatever you do, back to like working out, like, protein. And, when Mike Vacanti's like, all right, you did a lift, like protein. I'm like, really? Okay. And like during COVID, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm starting to finally get some muscles. Oh, because I was doing protein as fuck after lifts and not after not lifts. I was doing it right. Here's something right for everyone. Cut out 1 hour of negativity, add 1 hour of positivity. If you're listening right now and you're like, social's such a drag, it's because you're in a drag mindset and the algos and the people you follow are following you. You know what my social looks like? Fucking sunshine. I'm being dead fucking serious. You know what my algos look like? Fucking sunshine. In the world of the momentum of darkness right now, sunshine. You know why? I choose to fight for positivity, but I refuse to not be grounded in practicality, which is why I've always thrown curveballs. Love everybody, it's all awesome. Fuck 8th place trophies. What, Gary, what? 8th place trophies lead to entitlement and fear of losing, and it fucks up kids. So like, it's kind of that juxtaposition. Practical positivity is something everyone needs to add more. And so back to your point, we are gonna put out stuff forever because it's how we're wired. The people who are listening right now, for a lot of them, they need to understand where they match with us and where they don't. You and I match on a lot of things. There's a lot of things we don't match on. The person on the other side needs to figure that out. You, I would argue, watching you from afar, we know each other, but not that deep. We haven't had those 6 hours that we need, that we will have in the next 50 years where it starts to get even closer. But even from afar, it's clear to me that you're understanding more and more what is right from the messages you've heard and what's not right for you, and you refine it and you refine it. there's to your point, I say it all the time. Please don't be me. The only thing I want people to be like me is be as happy as me. That's an insular game. That's a self-awareness game. That's a process game. That's the only thing I want people to be like with me. Like, I'm weird. I've got a lot of weird nuances. I do a lot of things that are not scalable. I don't maximize for, I'm always worried when people are like, oh, I want to learn how you build your businesses. I'm like, it's real different. Like, I don't maximize for profit. I maximize for retention of relationships. If you aren't as confident as I am, when those people leave and compete with you, you become grudge oriented and envy oriented instead of happy oriented. Like, I've got some weird elements that people can't run my playbook. But I couldn't run other people's playbook. So pay attention, find what works for you, try shit, try it multiple times. Steve said something you like, try it once. Didn't work? Steve's not an idiot. You don't suck, try it again. It's not for you and I to judge because we've been wrong too much.
Yeah.
I've been wrong so much it scares the fuck out of me, and I'm gifted with intuition that when I'm dead, I hope they can test for it because I think I'm all time. And I've been wrong a ton. That makes me believe everyone's wrong. So if you're listening, here's a couple things that are a good call out that may bring value instead of what I just said. Asking what you're in it for is humongous.
Yeah, but this generation, I don't think they know. Because people come up to me
and you know this. First of all, you're part of this generation, young guy.
That's how I know.
But I know too. But guess what? My generation, I'm so done with this. My generation didn't know either. Guess what? When I was 22, all my friends wanted to hook up too. All my friends wanted a BMW too. And by the way, as somebody who observed people his whole life, the people that were older than me, the people that were buying expensive wine for me when I was 20 and they were 35, everybody wants stuff to communicate to others that they're winning. We've been putting on makeup since we had fucking clubs hitting each other. Like, it's what humans do. We do things to communicate to
status and stuff.
Yes. Why? To hide. We're hiding. We used to do it with status. Right now, we've decided to shit on each other. Our current move to hide is by tearing each other down. That's
status too, though. I want to be more. I want to be the most leftist. I want to be the most on the right. I want to,
Of course, the problem is, unlike buying a BMW and going into debt, when you're doing this one, you're hurting other people's feelings. It's one thing when you're hurting your credit score. It's another thing when you're trying to make someone feel bad about themselves. That's why the acts of us collectively at 8 billion people right now is completely and utterly unacceptable, which is why I'm desperately communicating at the highest levels about the stuff that I want to put into the world as a counter to people's us against them. Girls versus boys, blacks versus Jews, Republicans. It's fucking exhausting. Like, once people understand there's one team, humans, you can be mad at elephants. You can be mad at falcons. But like, being mad at each other is the most counterproductive thing. And we need to go into tribes. My country, my sports team. I understand this because I hate all the other football teams. It's the only place I get those feelings. The way people feel about Republicans and Democrats or genders and races or countries, the only place I can touch on it emotionally is American football. My level of actual disdain towards Patriot fans is real. I feel the rage. But the fact that I do that for something silly, that's a form of escapism, that's a couple hours a week to like reset and like enjoy and escape, like people watch movies or ski or exercise, that's silly. That's football. That's silly. We're doing this in real life to each other. And it's got to stop. And I think it starts with people understanding if you are shitting on others right now, it's a complete reflection to your own unhappiness and insecurity. When I talk about materialistic things, I talk about makeup for insecurity. If you are burning the midnight oil, you know how people burn out? They're working till 2 a.m. to buy the expensive car, to use it to close their insecurity, to get the affirmation from the opposite sex or their friends. That system's broke. It won't work. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like, everyone's like, oh, okay, Gary, but I'd rather have the fucking money. Like, this whole, like, I'd rather cry in my Ferrari than drive a Toyota or take the bus. You say that. Do you really want to be in a mental place where you're on the borderline of suicide and you have heavy drug usage, even though you make $3 million a year, $17 million a year? Because you know this now, Steve. You've worked very hard and you have the talents and the luck of the draw and you put in the execution to now run in circles where you know what I'm about to say is ungodly true, which is the following. An extraordinary amount of people that have unlimited resources are desperately lonely, insecure, unhappy, and borderline depression, suicidal. That's just truth. And so, like, the thought of me talking in any other direction when I know that to be true seems like the least authentic thing I can do. If you've decided I got fucked, well, then the game's over anyway. The fuck are we doing here? If you've decided I can't because I was unlucky, my mom this, my dad this, my country this, my gender that, my income level this, well, then it's over. Doesn't matter what I think, you think, anyone else thinks, it's over. I just refuse to talk to another human being and believe that to be true because there's been billions of examples of the alternative. Billions, Steve.
Yeah.
There's been billions of alternatives of the exact opposite.
So if this were, God forbid, the last day you had on earth to send a message to your mother, what exactly would you say?
You did it. She just really wanted to be the best mother because she didn't have one. I would just say she did it.
What did she do?
She made me happy. You know, I want to make everybody happy. And it's because I'm aware that she did a better job making me happy than anything I've ever seen about anybody and anywhere about anything. And I just feel like if I don't do that, given that I was given the gift of gab, if I don't scale that, if I don't help the biggest thing I can do for her is scale what she did for me.